which make us want to do something and continue to want to do it and turn our wishes into actions. And it influences why people decide to do something, how long they want to do it, and how hard they are prepared to work to achieve it. And this extract is from Spratt, Pulverness, and Williams. It's the TKT course published by Cambridge University Press. So, key factors in motivation. How useful is it for us to know the language well? Finding jobs, getting on courses of study, getting good marks from the teacher. It's an interest in the target language culture. It's all about feeling good about learning the language. Success, self-confidence, learner autonomy, and independence are all important factors. And the encouragement and support from others like teacher, parents, classmates, school, and society. It's our interest in the learning process. The interest and relevance to us of the course content, classroom activities, teacher's personality, teaching methods. Learners may have strong motivation in one of the factors mentioned and little in others. They may be motivated in different ways from one another. It can change for many different reasons. It can change with age. It needs to be both created and continued. Here are some suggestions. Set a personal example with your own behavior. Create a relaxed environment or atmosphere. Try to prevent anxiety in yourself or the learners. Things like, I don't know, mindfulness meditation can help in preventing anxiety if it's a problem for you. Present tasks in an interesting way, making the task seem achievable. Develop a good relationship with them. Increase their self-confidence about language learning. Help them feel to be good, they can be good at it. Make the classes interesting. Promote autonomy. Personalize the learning process. Help them to feel relevant, the material to their lives. Increase their awareness of goals, what they want to achieve. Familiarize students with the target language culture, whether it's the US, Australia, wherever it is. And that comes from the Ten Commandments of motivating language learners. This guy Dornier from Hungary is a real guru of motivation. Okay. So now we're going to move on to how we learn languages. Think about how you learned your mother tongue. How have you learned English or another foreign language? Have you learnt English or another foreign language more successfully from formal study or just by picking it up or acquiring it? So, any reactions to that? Anyone can speak on these questions. I don't think we'll go to breakout rooms because I've got a major activity, but I think if we go to breakout rooms now, it'll take up time. So, any reaction to these questions?
I can share.
Go on.
I mean, I think when it comes to your mother language, you kind of learn without much thought, just because it's around you all the time. You're hearing it, you're learning to
Yeah.
comprehend the meaning, when to use different phrases. Um, and I can say from my experience learning English, like I took English classes throughout elementary school. I went through Saturday school lessons and it never really stuck until I moved to the States and it was around me all the time that
Uh,
I really began to understand it. Um, so I think that's like being in an immersive space, it's usually like the most helpful for learning a language.
sure.
Um, but yeah, that's just my experience.
Yeah. But bearing in mind that a lot of the students in Mexico, it's really is a English as a foreign language, whereas your experience is English as a second language, wasn't it? Because you were immersed in the English language, but for many of our students here in Mexico, they don't have that. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
best we can probably do is create an immersive space in their English class. Anna, what were you going to say?
Hi, I was about to expose myself a little bit with the part of how we learn English, for example. English was my second language, and through I studied all my life in public school, which is terrible, by the way, because we don't learn actually English. We only learn like the same thing every year, and you don't move from that. So,
Well, the
until
verb
I
to be.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
It's like everything that we see in secondary school and even in high school is the same thing. But
mm.
the thing is that I've never really liked English because we as Mexicans we are taught to have this like almost like enmity with them all the time, like being like, no, we don't want to speak gringo and things like that. But then I discover, of course, that not only the states speaks English, but like a ton of other countries. And when I was like 19, 18, I actually started to learn English. This is the shameful part because of the gossip. Because I wanted to learn gossip, I wanted to learn the news, and they will arrive in Spanish a week later after everything happened. So I was like, no, no, no. I'm just like leaving behind my knowledge in the gossip. So I step up in my learning, and that's when I actually started to learn. And
Oh,
it was because it piqued my interest.
interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that, Anna.
sure.
Anyone else want to share their experience? Thank you very much so far for both Danny and Anna. Very different experiences.
Well, in my situation, um, my mom was an English teacher. My grandma was an English teacher. So even when I
Uh,
wasn't in school, uh, they were like having all these like practices in home, you know? So I had no break. So,
uh,
but even though for that, it was, I think, better than just as Anna said, just the same stuff that you see in school, right? Because you only learn it like from three steps and it's always the same. But in my house, it was like I have to practice it, and I have to practice it a lot. So yeah.
thank you, Vito. Anyone else before we move on to how we learn? Well, go on, Anna Marie, Anna Martinez. What?
Yeah, sorry. I was like, me again. I'm sorry, guys. It's just that I do love languages. After high school, I started to fall in love with languages, and I took Japanese, I took Korean, I took French, Italian. But the thing is that the only one that I didn't like was actually French. I had to study because of university, but I really hated French because I wanted to learn Italian, and they didn't let me learn Italian. So because of that, it took me like 2 years to move to A2 because I just couldn't. I hated French because I had to study.
Right. So, over the centuries, people have studied how foreign languages are learned. And many experts now believe that one way we learn a foreign language is by exposure to it, by hearing and or reading it all around us, and without studying it. This is how children learn their first language. Now, they also say to learn a foreign language, particularly as adults or learning it as an L2, right? Exposure is not enough. We also need to focus our attention on the form of the foreign language, like how it is pronounced or written, and how its grammar is formed and used, and on the form and meaning of its vocabulary. Okay, we're going to do an activity soon, but I think it will be useful to just point out a few differences between acquisition or acquiring and learning, right? The idea is that acquiring the language is somehow unconscious, right? So that's maybe what Danny was doing in the US, right? As much as maybe there was conscious learning as well going on, Danny, but you were probably getting lots of exposure, right, from the surroundings. And it takes place over a period of time. And there was this approach to language learning that started in the 70s called the natural approach, that insisted that we should listen to and read items of language for a long period of time before we begin to use them, right? That was called the silent period. Right? The other way, complementary, is interacting with other people. We need to use language to express ourselves and to make our meanings clear to other people and to understand them. And the other way is by focusing on form. This means that learners need to pay attention to language by identifying, working with it, and practicing the language they need to communicate. So it could be, the different forms of the verbs. When you're talking about present continuous, present progressive, it's not just the affirmative form that you need to look at, but also how to form questions and make the negative form, right, to be able to communicate adequately. Now, I'm going to give you an activity to do in which I'm going to split you into two groups. First group is going to look at similarities between first and second language learning. So you got the question, what are the similarities between the way that the first language learner, that's what L1 means, learn their first language. So imagine Mexicans learning Spanish, right? And the way that these learners learn English in a classroom. Okay, so what are those similarities between the way that they learn their first language, Mexican students learn Spanish, and the way that they learn English? What are the similarities? Now, group B, you're going to do differences. So you're going to think about what are the differences between learners of a first language, so Mexican students learning Spanish, and Mexican students learning English. All right. And you're going to complete these sentences. All right. And these are like principles. And can you think of any other differences? And what do you think the similarities are? So, ones that are doing similarities, also try and think of other similarities and what do you think are the differences? Okay. Now, I'm going to put you into two groups to prepare. Right? So you're going to work on this worksheet for 15 minutes. Now, if you, after the 15 minutes are up and you've finished, you can go on to the second part. How can we best help L2 learners? Remember, L2 stands for second language, right? Now, it's going to work like this. If you are Katia, Ingrid, Marlene, Danielle, and Anna Belen, you're going to work on the, is that the differences or the similarities? Let's check. You're going to work on the similarities. Okay, so I'm going to send this to you. This link in the chat. Now you're going to write your answers on a Google Doc, all right? So that you're all collaborating on this together. So watch it coming through the chat now, directly to you, Katia. Next person is going to be Ingrid. Marlene is next. Anna Belen, that's Anna Martinez, isn't it? Chat.
Yes.
There you go. Okay, now I'm going to put you into breakout rooms so you can collaborate and discuss what you think the answers are to this activity. Now, if you are Axel, Andrea, Xochitl, Vitor, Tanya, and Ana Paula, you are going to do differences. All right. Axel. There's Axel. Next is Andrea. Xochitl is next. Vitor. Anya. Paul. Okay, so you can get working on that. It's a collaborative activity. When you're in breakout rooms, it will be a good idea for one of you to screen share. That way that you could all see it, that you're working on it together. So let's start the breakout rooms.
I'm sorry, Andrew. What do you mean by taking a screenshot? I mean, I know what a screenshot is,
Sorry,
but
it's no, not screenshot, screen share. If you could screen share, so
oh,
that
okay,
yeah, so that you can all see that
okay,
you're all working on the same thing. Yeah,
okay, great. I thought you had said screenshot. Thank you.
yeah. Sorry, confusing. 15 minutes starting now. Please go to your breakout room, Victor. Now, you're going to have a little bit more time to discuss these interesting ideas, right? You seem to be quite motivated to talk about this. So I'm now going to put you in pairs with someone who had a different task to you. So, for example, I think I'm right in saying that Katia, you talked about similarities, whereas Axel talked about differences. Ingrid talked about similarities. Andrea talked about differences. Anna Marlene talked about similarities. Schuttel differences. Um, Daniela similarities. Vito differences. Anna Belen and Anna Paula similarities. And Tanya differences. Okay. So I'd like you to tell your partner about these similarities and just compare the similarities and the differences. Okay. In breakout rooms, so you're kind of crossing over now, crossing the groups. Um, so I'm going to have you in new breakout rooms for this. I'll give you about 8 minutes. Should be enough. And if you have time, you could talk about the how can we best help L2 learners? Rank them in importance, in order of importance. Yeah, so that's the follow-up task there. Now, if you're having difficulty understanding some of this terminology, check in the TKT glossary. That's what it's there for, right? You'll need to get used to, checking this when you're on the TKT course, right? So, for example, if you can't remember exactly what acquisition means in language learning, have a look in the TKT glossary, right? Remember, it's to learn a language without studying it, just by hearing and or reading it and then using it. It's more unconscious. This is the way that people usually learn their first language, right? So compare then with the person who did the opposite task from you. I'm putting you into breakout rooms again. Let's do it. Right, quick answer check in case you weren't sure. There's A, there's B. Any comments there? Any interesting terminology that you hadn't seen before?
Well, for me, fossilization is a new word.
Ah,
I guess it means to remain stagnant, right?
yes, it does. Yeah, that's exactly what it means. It means you're not advancing, right? You're
Yes.
kind of
Okay.
stuck like a dinosaur.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
makes sense.
yeah,
Thanks. I think that's
again,
it.
again, it's in the TKT glossary if you want a definition. Silent period. Is that a new one for you?
Uh, well, it explains itself, right? But yeah, I've
Mhm.
actually never heard about it.
Yeah, and I think it's defined here in the TKT glossary, and it says silent period. Time when learners who are beginning to learn a first or second language prefer to listen or read before producing the language. Babies have a silent period when they listen to their parents before starting to try to speak themselves. Whether you think that's true, necessarily true or not, I don't know, but it's just a theoretical idea, right? The silent period. Because personally, I think some babies start mimicking their parents' speech really, really early. Yeah. Interlanguage, that's an interesting one. You know, it's like the way when we're learning a language, we sometimes make words up that are neither English or Spanish. Like I was really emotionated to hear the news. Yeah, it's like we combine us almost like invent a word that's in between Spanish and English, like emotionated. Yeah, have you heard that one? Emocionado, emotionated. Yeah, I'm sure you can think of similar examples. Yeah. Aye. Group B, and that answers there. Any interesting ones? We mentioned fossilization already. Okay, cool. And what about how can we best help L2 learners? Any suggestions? Any suggestions there?
I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi was having like an issue. What was the question?
How can we best help L2 learners? Which do you think were particularly important?
Mm, Well, I think that as the second language, it doesn't have like a lot of practice out of the classroom. I think that
Uh-huh.
to Yeah, as we were just saying on the team, to associate like the meanings, like even to watch a movie in
Yeah,
that language, it's better because you kind of associate and get like the to start to developing a little bit on that language.
yeah. Yeah, that's one of the biggest problems we face, isn't it? Is like maybe lack of exposure uh, outside the classroom. Mm.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
I also think that it's important to share like about the culture. We're
uh,
teaching English, like hey, just even like holidays, like Thanksgiving, like what are um, so kind of like I guess awaken curiosity in them to learn about not only the language but the culture. And yeah, I personally, maybe because I like history, but that helps. So we could talk about like similarities or differences between their traditions or their culture versus um, this culture that in the English speaking countries or for like in the US, for example.
yeah, yeah. And maybe, yeah, teach history through English, whether it be US history or Mexican history. Why not?
Another big ally for me in my lessons is music because I haven't found a person who doesn't like music. And something really interesting about this is that it's always, not always, but like 90% of the country in which we speak the most is England, actually, because they do have a lot of good music. So that really,
Uh-huh.
really helps out.
Right.
Yeah, and also one more thing could be like breaking off like a big task into a small milestones so that they feel that they're making progress and then
Mm,
gives this sense of accomplishment.
right. Yeah. The learners feel they're making progress is pretty important, isn't it? Yeah, so goal setting and showing the students that they've achieved certain goals. Right. Just just one more point to make then, regarding acquisition and learning. Nowadays, experts generally agree that we do not learn a foreign language best through grammar and translation, nor do we learn by constantly practicing until we form habits or just by communicating. So we learn by picking up the language, interacting and communicating, and focusing on form. Those are important ingredients. If we don't focus on form, we don't develop any accuracy. And if we don't develop accuracy, then we can't manipulate the language to be able to communicate in a way that we can be understood easily. You know? I mean, you just when you're learning Spanish, you do have to, learn things like the subjunctive clauses and so on, don't you? Otherwise, you'll be constantly at a basic level of communication. Yeah, so form is pretty important as well. Okay. So you could please, between now and next week, do that little bit of homework I set you, and you can also have a go, try to do some stuff on the platform. There is a platform.
Sorry, but where did you send the homework?
I sent it in the chat. Yeah, but that's just an optional extra. But I'll
Was it
send
the
it to you again.
test, the small test, just like
The
6
small test.
questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll send it again. Yeah. TKT. You
Thank
can
you,
download
because
it.
I don't see it.
Me neither. I don't see it.
There you go. It's in the chat now.
Yes, thank you.
Download that and have a go. Here are the answers. Save the answers. So once you've done it after 6 minutes, you can check your answers. Try to do the material introduction to the course, and you can start background to language learning. All right. So look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and pleasure to meet you all, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
And
weekend.
Meet you
bye-bye.
guys.
Have a wonderful
Bye-bye.
weekend.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Nice
Take
meeting
care.
you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you. Thank you, teacher.
Meet you. Thank you.